Hey, welcome to Budapest. I'm about to leave the Airbnb. Let's hit the road and go exploring. The Airbnb is in a very nice neighborhood here in District 6, if that means anything to anyone. Not far from the so-called greatest cafe in the world. New York Cafe is just down the street, which might be the nearest landmark. I'm at the New York Cafe. It's not that good though, because as you can see, the heading on these columns does not line up on this page. On this page it does, but over here it does not, and I find that to be unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. Speaking of the Airbnb has been great. Lovely place. Has a bicycle, which is amazing. I haven't had to use the metro very much as a result. I can ride that bicycle over to Buda Hills and see all the castles, see all the stuff. We've got AC in there. We've got a lovely loft to sleep in. We've got a good workspace, small kitchen that works great, and a nice little bathroom. We're heading down into the city center. It's about a 25-minute walk to get down into Parliament. We're gonna see Parliament. We're gonna go across the river into Buda Hills, which, by the way, so you have Buda and you have Pest. Pest is flat. Pest is most of the city, and then Buda is the hilly part of town, and that's where like all the castles are. And then there are some residential zones over in that area too. Hey, look, it's my gym. The gym has been good. It's a little on the small side, but it's usually not too busy, especially on the weekends. And it almost has everything that I need, other than an extension cord, apparently. Just down the street from the gym is the House of Terror, and it's on one of the busiest streets here in Budapest. Now it's a museum. Previously, it was the headquarters of the Nazis during World War II. And then when the Red Army came in and liberated Hungary, the communist headquarters was set up there. And of course, it worked great for them because all of those torture devices and all of the prison cells that are in the cellar were very useful. I had a chance to go inside and I had this brochure, and as I was walking through, I just crushed it from all the emotions. I was getting scared, angry, frustrated, sad. It's a lot to think about. As we continue our journey through Budapest, one of the delicacies here that has been recommended many times are those funnel cakes, which I imagine they are quite delicious. I haven't had them yet, but I have had sugar before. I can imagine that they are quite tasty. Apparently there's different, I don't know if it's fillings or frostings that you put on them, lots of different options, whether it's hazelnut or even poppy seed. So we've been walking for about 15 minutes now. We get a little look at the Opera House behind us. Standing at a height of 96 meters high in front of us, or well, over here, we have St. Stephen's Basilica. I was on a tour yesterday and the guide asked us, how tall do you think that is? I said, 96 meters. She goes, yes, very good. And she goes, do you know why? And then I said, 896, because Hungary was founded or became a country in the year 896. And I told her, well, I've been here for a couple weeks, and one of my other guides told me that 96 is the magic number when it comes to a lot of these buildings. I heard that it used to be free to go inside, and then some of the people here were saying, well, they charge for everything now, and so you got to pay a few euros just to get in the door. We've arrived at Liberty Square, and obviously there's a concert going on here. I've been here 3 times. First time it was empty, and the second time it was set up with a bunch of food trucks and stuff in the center, and now there's a concert going on. Apparently another recommended food to try is this langos, kind of like a Hungarian fast food. I haven't tried it, but if you want a recommendation, there it is. The show has started at Hero Square. At the end of Hero Square, there's a Soviet monument. This says Slava Sovietskim Heroam, basically glory to the Soviet soldiers. And then of course we also see the hammer and sickle there, which is illegal in Budapest, but it's okay on this monument. And then over here is the American Embassy. And right by the American Embassy is a statue of George H.W. Bush. And this was put here to, I think, commemorate his visit to Budapest in 1989. H.W. Bush over there. And across from him we have President Reagan. And behind Mr. Reagan, we have the Hungarian Parliament. There's Liberty Square behind us now. We can talk a little bit about that Soviet monument. It's kind of controversial Hungary was liberated by the Red Army, even though Hungary was on the side of the Germans until the end of the war. And then they said they wanted to be with the Allies. But by that time, the Nazis were already here, so they needed liberating. And they weren't sure if the Americans were going to get here first or the Red Army was going to get here. And the Red Army got here. But it wasn't ideal because their liberators stayed here. It brought in communism, it brought in tyranny, it brought in violence, it brought in torture, murder, rape. So that Soviet heroes monument is kind of controversial, and they've talked about taking it down, but it's actually also a grave site. So that's one of the reasons why they've left it there. Adding to the complexity of it, it's also been, more recently, with the Ukraine war going on, a site of protesting Russia. And so fresh flowers have been put there by, presumably, the Russian consulate in support of Russia. So when I was there the first time, there was fresh flowers there, even though it was a site of controversy. Also, there used to be a massive fence around it. I think that has to do with a lot of people don't like it, and maybe they would vandalize it. So now they have a lot of cameras around that area. We have reached the Parliament building. Budapest is sometimes called the Paris of the East, and for good reason when you have a building like this. Apparently the members of the government here wanted Budapest to compete with Vienna in terms of beauty and art and culture. There was a competition to design the new House of Parliament, and this was, of course, the first place design. But the interesting thing is that over here we have second place, and wait for it, over here we have third place. I think it's cool that they had enough space and I guess enough uses to put in not only first place, but then runner-up and then the second runner-up. Apparently the building is also very underutilized. There's about 200 members of parliament and there's 700 rooms here. So a lot of extra space and a lot of extra dusting. In 1956, there was an uprising here against the communist government, and a lot of young people came together and other members of the community came together, and they actually were able to overthrow and push out the Soviets in the communist government and claim their freedom for 2 weeks. Of course, the communists and the USSR couldn't let their territories claim their independence. So they came back 2 weeks later, ended up executing a bunch of revolutionaries, ended up executing the prime minister that was installed, and took control of the country. I heard a story yesterday, I don't know if it's true or not, but Joseph Stalin came here it was either 1950 or right around 1950, and he came to Parliament and he looked out across the Danube and he said, "Why is it in this communist country where we're all atheists, why is it I can see 3 churches?" And he ordered those churches destroyed. But thankfully he died just a few years later in 1953, and the churches survived. They outlived him and they're still here. Just a short walk from the Parliament building, we have Shoes on the Danube, which is a memorial to all the people who were killed here by the Nazi Party in World War II, or the Arrow Cross Party, arm of the Nazi Party. The militia could execute people for a lot of reasons. Maybe if you were caught after curfew and then you were taken to the river. Shoes were a hot commodity back in those days that they wanted to reuse and sell, and so they would have people take off their shoes before they would execute them, shoot them, drop the body in the river, take the shoes. On the other side of the Danube, or if you prefer, on the other side of the Duna, we have the castle district of Buda Hills. The best way to get over there, the fastest way for me to get over there is, I think, to take the metro. We're gonna find the metro over here and we're gonna go under the river and come out on the other side. Welcome to Buda. We have the Danube, and now on the other side is the Parliament building. Back there is Pest. The metro here reminds me of another metro that I have used a lot, the Moscow metro. You go down, you go very deep, deeper. This metro was built by the communists and probably a lot of the same engineers that had helped work on the metro in Moscow. This same station, by the way, I had a Viator, which is an app. I recently found this app for going on tours and booking guides and stuff. It's called Viator. There's other similar ones. I also found about Get Your Guide. So those are 2 good ones you can use when you're on vacation. Anyway, I went to the highest point here in Budapest, Elizabeth Lookout, I met the guide here. It was a great journey. He had transportation. He already had the tickets. Basically, you needed a lift ticket to get up. You needed a lift ticket to get down. Once you got up to the top, it was about a 10-minute walk up a steeper incline, but it was all paved and very, very doable. And then of course there's a tower there, and you climb a few stairs and you get to the top of the tower. The tower kind of reminds me a little bit of Disneyland. That was my first impression once I got all the way up there and I saw top of this castle. But so we climbed to the top, and then you get a view of everything, and the view is very beautiful. You get a view of the countryside, you get a view of Buda Hills, you get a view of Pest. You can see all the way down to the Parliament building. So I do recommend doing that if you come to Budapest and if you have time. Also, I think his offering on there was very cost effective. I looked at maybe just doing it on my own after the fact, and I saw that getting a cab from here and going up to the lookout point probably costs about $20 or $30 just one way. And so obviously you need to get a cab ride on the way back. And then of course there's the lift tickets and everything. And so what I ended up paying was about $50 all inclusive for the transportation and those lift tickets. As we continue to Buda Hills, Buda Castle, it's starting to get dark, which is actually good. It's about 8:30. A lot of this stuff looks really cool at night, so I wanted to see it in the lights. By the way, the metro is free if you're over 65, but only if you're a member of the European Union. If you're an American or Canadian or Australian or whatever, and you come here and then somebody, some good-hearted citizen says, oh yeah, if it's over 65, it's free. Don't listen to them. That's wrong. And if you get on there and you get busted, you're gonna have to pay like maybe a 60 or 70 euro fine. I look back into Pest. Some of the lights are starting to come on, and I actually missed the turn to go to Fisherman's Bastion, so I kept walking straight. I ended up here at the Funicular. So this crooked tram that goes up the hill is the Funicular. I'm not very familiar with that word, but that's what it's called. And actually my guide from yesterday, this sweet, probably 70-plus-year-old woman, she was like, don't take the Funicular, it's not worth it. It's such a short ride, and you can just find other ways to walk. I mentioned Viator, the app, and you can book different experiences on there. And so I met at this point right at the base of this Funicular just the other day for this vampire and ghost tour where we had this great actor presenting, and he was really good. He had a lot of funny jokes. He was really polished with all the stories that he was telling us, and it was fun. We met at about 8 o'clock, and then we went up into the castle, and he told us 5 or 6 different stories of just some of the hauntings and some of the spooky stuff that's happened here. That's one way you can go if you don't want to take the funicular. There's also a more gradual path over this way. As we're continuing our way to the top, our guide told us the story of the Dark Count, a count who resided in these hills, and he died from sorrow when a young girl was killed at his house. And now people say that you can see him at night, and he's here protecting the young kids in the area. We made it to the top, and they're just turning on the lights to the Parliament on the Pest side, and they're just starting to turn on the lights to a lot of the castles here in Buda Castle area. There is St. Stephen's Cathedral lit up at night, 96 meters tall. Oh, by the way, the Parliament is also 96 meters tall. For 896, the year Hungary was founded. There will be a quiz later. So behind me, Buda Castle, which is the former royal palace, goes all the way over here. Of course, they don't have a monarchy anymore. First night I got here to Budapest, I went on a tour, kind of a scooter type tour. Big fat tire on these monster scooters. You could sit down on them. We came up here and there was actually like a wedding party. You could hear the bass party going on inside of the former royal palace. On the far south side of the palace, there's actually an elevator that'll take you down to an escalator and also a big set of stairs there that you can then take all the way down to the street level, which is right by the river. So it's actually a really handy way to get up and down the hill. And it gives you a really, really nice view of the castle from the ground level. Behind the royal palace here to the south, there's a hill. On top of the hill is the citadel, which was a prison, and it overlooks the city. Good evening. It's, of course, my impression of Bela Lugosi, the Hungarian actor famous for playing Dracula in the 1930s. The first actor to really play Dracula, and actually I think it was the second ever movie about vampires. The first one was Nosferatu. That was silent. Then, of course, Bela Lugosi's Dracula. And he was Hungarian, and so the Eastern European accent that we generally associate with Count Dracula is a Hungarian accent. As we continue to the Fisherman's Bastion and Matthias Church, we actually have King Matthias behind us, depicted in a hunting scene. His father, János, by the way, I learned this on the vampire tour. His father, János, was thought to be immortal. During the battles, he would be in the battle, very brave, just standing there in the midst of all the chaos, seemingly unkillable. And during one battle with the Turks, they knew that he would be out there, and they were going to make a push to assassinate him. But János found out about this, and so they had a body double and dressed him in all the armor and everything, and they tried their best to protect him, but unfortunately he fell in the battle. But only minutes later he reappeared because János wasn't dead. And then the Turks saw the risen János and they ran away. So it's János Corvinus and then his son Matthias Corvinus. And if you've ever seen those underworld movies with Kate Beckinsale as a vampire, this is the bloodline that they used in the movies to represent the immortals, was the Corvinus bloodline. And Michael Corvin, I think, was the name of the fictional character in the movie. His name had been shortened from Corvinus. And Corvinus actually comes from the Latin word for crow, which is corvus. So the family symbol of the Corvinus is the raven, and if you look around town you can find where these different ravens are at. And I just noticed that even on the money there's not one but two crows with the ring in the mouth, the symbol of the Corvinus family. So as we continue to Matthias Church and the Fisherman's Bastion, a lot of the buildings here are actually under construction. They're being remade to the original standard because they were destroyed during the war. A lot of this area came under heavy bombing, especially this building was kind of a Nazi stronghold. When the Red Army was coming, the Nazis came across the Danube River and they blew up all the bridges. And then when this building got bombed, there's actually a lot of labyrinths and cellars that connect these buildings on the Buda side. And so a lot of them were able to escape underground. So on the way from the Royal Palace, which is behind there, over to Matthias Church, which is over here, we actually have the House of Houdini. Eric Weiss, also known as Harry Houdini, is another famous Hungarian, and I was actually able to go in there yesterday, paid my €9 or whatever it is, saw a little 15-20 minute magic show, and then there's a little tour of the museum there also. Talks about Houdini's life. Fun fact, I did not know that after he left Hungary, he was born in Budapest, and then he moved to the United States at age 2. He moved to Appleton, Wisconsin, and I have a cousin who lives there. As we continue down the path to Matthias Church, so it's a quiet Sunday evening here in Buda Castle district. I was here yesterday for a tour in the afternoon. Of course, all these shops were open and stuff. One thing I was surprised to see, they were selling Russian nesting dolls. So don't be confused, Russian nesting dolls. They're not from Hungary. Here's Matthias Church. What did we say? Corvus, crow, Corvinus, their family symbol. Parliament building across the river. And then Matthias Church here, and if you come to the back, look, you can see another raven. Just off to the side of the church, there's a miniature version with braille for people who have impaired sight. And right behind the church, almost as if it's part of the church, but on the edge here, on the edge of this plaza, this is Fisherman's Bastion, these pointy tents here. There's actually 7 of these peaks here to represent these 7 original tribes that settled here in Hungary. Pro tip, if you get here after 9 p.m. or before 9 a.m., you can walk around in this section without having to pay your whatever, €2, because there's no one there to take your ticket. And on top of the Fisherman's Bastion, you can go up there, have a great view, take some Instagram photos. So we did it, we made it to Buda Hills, Buda Castle, saw the Royal Palace, saw Matthias Church, made it to the Fisherman's Bastion, we saw the House of Terror, we saw parts of Pest, we saw the Parliament building. So let me know, what do you think of Budapest? When are you coming here? By the way, I do recommend it. It is a fantastic, beautiful, beautiful place to come and visit. I think most of the people I know would love to come here and they would really have a good time. As always, I would love to hear from you in the comments below. I'm out here on the journey, you're out here with me. It's kind of become my catchphrase, but really what it means is I'm out here and I'm out here all alone. So I like to hear from people in the comments. So from Budapest, thank you so much for watching, and until next time. Oh, I almost forgot. The Rubik's Cube was invented in Hungary. See ya!